Hey guys, it's Steve from Featherlight, and today we are checking out the brand new 800D LED light panel kit from GVM. And we don't normally do gear reviews, but we wanted to add some lights to the studio, and these guys are great value and they've been getting rave reviews. We wanted to check them out ourselves, so let's get started. All right, so these guys just got here in the mail, so let's do a quick unboxing and check it out. Dull knife. They're packaged really well. This is a really sturdy box, which is nice, especially if UPS is a little rough or FedEx is a little rough in your area. And this is nice, a really nice kind of semi-hard case. And really nice packaging too, you can really tell. These are really, really nicely set up, man. They come plastic wrapped, and they come with, this is the 2-light kit, and it comes with stands, and each one of the stands has their own bag. So you can really see GVM is trying to do a really nice job on the branding here. And this stuff really keeps your stands from kind of getting banged up, and so at least if you're using this for gig work, you don't show up and all your stuff is all banged up. But and then you got what looks to be the box of accessories here. Yeah. So power supply for each one of the lights. And you got power cables as well. All right, and then finally, we've got its little compartment here. Each one of the GVM lights themselves are housed in this pretty cool and very nice. This is much better quality than I was expecting. This is kind of a molded case with 2 little indentations to hold the lights stable in place. This is a really nice case. The divider section for the lights themselves is well thought out, and the recessed area for it to sit in really helps protect the lights. I'm really surprised about that. The lights themselves are really lightweight because they're a mixture of plastic and metal. And the lights themselves come packaged in really heavy kind of velvet bags, but they're canvas on the inside. So these are pretty sturdy. These would definitely add some value to the kit as a whole and really help you keep them nicely protected for sure. Each stand comes with its own heavy canvas bag, and it's got kind of like a suede finish on the outside. They're pretty durable. They'll keep your stuff from getting banged up. So these are probably worth hanging on to. It's just a drawstring top. The stand itself is a light duty stand. So this isn't going to be a C stand or anything like this. This is designed really just to hold the weight of the lights itself. And for that, they're more than adequate. So they're surprisingly robust for what they're made of. But it's all aluminum. The legs extend pretty far. So these can go all the way out to about there. That makes this a pretty stable stand. It's not going to knock over anytime soon. The U-bracket itself is all machined aluminum, including the top cap here, as well as the posts of the stand itself, but the collars and the knobs are plastic. So you're not going to be able to subject this to a ton of serious road use. It's not really designed for that. It's more than adequate for what this is. But be careful when cranking these down. Don't reef on them, or you're probably going to strip those out fairly easily. So starting with the base legs all the way extended like this and then snugged up. The first level adjustment, if you pull it all the way up and then push it back down about 1 inch, it makes a much more secure connection. Same with this one. So if you pull the next or the second section all the way up and then back in about 1 inch, it makes the overall stand a lot more secure. All right, and then the final stage, if we pull that all the way up and then again come back about 1 inch or so, that takes the total stand up to about 6 feet, which is more than enough, even for a key light if you're standing, for example, or to get a wash on a larger area. And then, so with the stands extended, these guys just mount on here with the standard lighting top, and then the wing nut just tightens the whole thing down. and it makes it for a pretty stable light stand. There's a little bit of play in each one of the sections. Like I said, this stand is not meant to replace a heavy-duty stand like a C stand or something, but they're more than adequate for the height and the weight of these lights. So it's a good blend of portability and durability. The lights themselves have a barn door system, and the barn doors themselves are plastic, so they're not super durable. And compared to, for example, the Neewer lights that have all aluminum and metal barn door bracket systems, these are a lot lighter duty. However, it's really durable plastic, and these are a lot more likely to flex if you drop them on something or bump something into them than the aluminum ones. In many ways, these are a little more practical because the aluminum ones bend really easy. So considering these aren't really going to be able to surgically flag off the light very well, these are really meant just to keep spill from maybe fading into another color. But they're basically wash lights, so keep that in mind. The panel barn doors are held on by these little thumb screws, which are an Allen wrench insert and then a thumb screw on the outside. So these can easily be undone. The panel hinges are all plastic, so that keeps the weight of the fixture down, but keep in mind that these aren't going to withstand, for example, nearly as much wear and tear as a more expensive all-metal fixture might, but it's also going to be a lot lighter too. The LED panel itself is actually covered by a small diffuser panel, which is really just a piece of plexiglass, and it can be removed by depressing these little brackets here on the end, and that allows you to slide the panel completely out of the way. This exposes the LED panel array, so these are unprotected at that point. So even though this little piece of plexiglass probably doesn't provide a great deal of protection, it is pretty stout. It's a pretty heavy-duty piece of plastic, so it's probably best just to leave it in there because that allows you to have the LEDs covered and even do some creative things later. For example, if you want to gel into more complex colors or half and half, like half gel one color, half light LEDs. And that's simply put in place by this little clicking bracket that clicks up, and that keeps it from sliding back out again. So it's a pretty simple design. The panel can be run off 2 Sony style batteries, but it requires both batteries to operate, so you can't just run it off of one. And you can run it off AC power as well. And finally, the DC power adapter that they give you is actually long enough to reach the ground, which is kind of nice because it means once these are plugged in, you're not hanging the power supply off of it like in some of the other light designs. The chassis of the unit itself is all machine aircraft aluminum, as well as the U-bracket and the top cap holder. And the mount for the batteries itself is plastic, as well as the barn door assembly and the hinge assembly for the barn door. But everything else is aluminum. On the back panel here, the first thing that we see is the LED panel. Then we've got some navigation buttons and 2 adjustable rotary dials. The rocker switch right here in the middle is off. If you rocker it to one side, the left side, that's battery power. Back in the center's off. And on this side, it powers the device on for AC power. The light can be operated in several different modes, including Wi-Fi mode, which is when you're using the app. So whichever mode you power the light off in, when you power it back on, it will remember the mode you were in. If we continue to press the modes button, we cycle through all the available choices, including the ability to set each lamp to the master and slave status and the corresponding channel. Next is the Wi-Fi mode, where we control the lights wirelessly with our app, followed by the special lighting section, which we'll talk more about later. And then the bicolor lamp mode, where we can control the temperature from 5600 Kelvin all the way down to tungsten and anywhere in between. And then finally, the RGB light mode. The right-hand control knob right here is a multifunction button, which means we can press in on it. And by doing so, it takes us to the hue and saturation part of the RGB light. And from here, we can adjust the color directly, as well as the brightness directly. If we press this one more time, it takes us to the saturation mode. So this simply desaturates the light as we go down in percentages until pretty soon at 0, we're basically just at white LEDs that have a bit of a blue tint depending on the hue. So you're not really turning down the saturation as much as you're adding white light or a fairly light colored light to your color image. So for saturation, you want to really keep this at about 100%. However, there are some caveats to doing so, and that is when you're adjusting the hue. So let's press this back to its hue. And now, as we adjust the hue knob in RGB mode and we cycle through the available color choices, you may notice that some of the changes from one color to another are a lot more abrupt. This is because we're just using 100% of the RGB LEDs to choose our colors with instead of the white lights that were helping to diffuse those changes before. This may be the one area where the app excels over the physical knobs, as the knobs in the color hue change mode only allow increments of 5, and the app allows much smaller incremental changes. So from here, you can really tell as we spin this knob around the changing colors to the LEDs. So I'm moving it, I'm moving it, I'm moving it, and then this one click illuminates all the red LEDs. And now as we step through the hue that involves all the red, we get closer and closer to the green. Now all the greens turn on. So the takeaway is, if you want the most vibrant colors and you want the most intense color spread, you're going to want to keep that saturation level at 100%. But the trade-off is that some of the changes through the hues, especially if you're adjusting them manually from the back panel, may be too abrupt for doing things in real time, especially on a set where you have the light operator changing these changes for you. Keep in mind that all RGB lights are like this and work the same way. You're always going to get the most vibrant color at keeping the saturation levels at 100%. As you drop the saturation levels and add more white light, the transitions will be smoother, but you won't get nearly the color intensity. One of the things that's not immediately evident in the manual is that these two devices, once powered on, already talk to one another even without being on the app on your phone or even having your phone connected to the GVM wireless network. They are already communicating, and all I've done is simply turn them on. The only thing I've done is set this device to master and its channel to 0. And then this device to slave and its channel to 0. When I shut them off and turn them back on again, they'll come back up in that exact same mode. And when those are set like that, for example, if I go to the hue mode here and I change it to bicolor mode, that one dutifully follows along. If I change it to RGB mode and I choose a color, that one dutifully follows along. There is a little bit of a latency between the time that I change the color and it appears on this lamp, but it's minor and more than enough to set the lights up with. So really, the app isn't necessary at all, unless for some reason you simply want to do it on your phone. The difference is these never lose connection with one another. They've been stable for all the tests that I've done so far, and the app constantly loses connection. Next up is the Wi-Fi mode, and this is where we'll connect and use the mobile app to control the lights. All right, so the app is kind of hit and miss. So it's got some great controls, and if it stayed connected consistently, it would be a powerful tool. However, it doesn't. In fact, the app is kind of a mess. So there are kind of workarounds to making it work. It is nice to be able to change the colors in the background, for example, but the second your phone goes to sleep or your phone loses focus for the app, it will disconnect. And if it disconnects, you have to power down the slave light, make the reconnection with the master, and then power back up the slave light. So for example, just in the time we were using it here, the lights have already disconnected on us. So for example, like right now, we've already lost connection to the lights. So we'll have to power down this one. We have to exit out of the app. Then we need to go back into the app while this one is still on Wi-Fi. We need to go into the settings of the camera itself in the GVM app and change the device or switch the device to RGB lights. Now we're waiting again for it to connect. And a lot of times it doesn't. So, like for example, right there, it says connected. So we're going to be able to spin it around, and you can see now we have control over the lights again. So now we're going to go over to this light and we're going to turn it on. And in slave mode, when we start to move this hue slider, this one has now woke back up again. So you can see as we change the color, the master changes first and then the slave kind of catches up. So if you're hoping for smooth color transitions, this isn't going to help you at all. Most of the time we found it was easier simply to set the colors we wanted on the lights individually because of the back panel. Allows you to get to all the settings and just set them and forget them. The next mode we're going to cycle through to is the special features mode. So we're going to press the mode button. We're currently on Wi-Fi. We press it one more time and that takes us to the special light features. And these ended up being a lot more useful than I thought they were going to be. And it's one of the reasons why I bought this LED panel as opposed to many of the other ones. Now they all have some kind of special lighting features, but it's how they handle those that make all the difference in the world. This is a really good example of that. All of them have some kind of lightning mode, for example. The problem with it is that the lightning constantly cycles in this incredibly repeatable pattern that doesn't look anything like lightning. In this mode, for example, the lightning only happens when the lamp operator hits the button. And that gives it a very realistic looking lightning effect. If you're going to use this, for example, for a documentary or a student film or anything like that, or special effects, that allows the lamp operator to determine when the effect happens. In this example, we place one of the lights outside. And we have an operator triggering the lightning effect. And this gives us a pretty believable effect overall. Shooting through the window and the screen on the window helps give it a little bit of texture. And then we place one of the other lights in the background. And this helps fill out the set and give us some background detail. The next one on here is the paparazzi, and this is designed basically to look like photo flashes. We can change the brightness of this as well. And this is meant to look like lots of like flash photography. And again, this is another one that's really convincing if you use both lamps simultaneously because the flashes are coming from different directions. And that looks a lot more realistic when you're stepping through these effects. Next up is the cop car effect. This is the rotating blue and red LED lights commonly seen on police cars. And this is a surprisingly realistic effect. And especially if shot through a window, for example, or if done outside or bounced off something out of frame, this can be very convincing. In this example, we're using one of the lights about waist high to create the cop car effect and the other light in the background to recreate the cop's on-car hand light. The next one on here is candle. And what this does is it gradiates the light in kind of a random pattern to make it look like it's a candle burning. Now, this uses the color LEDs to achieve this, but the candle lightness is a little too bright. Thankfully, unlike a lot of the other RGB lights, a lot of these lighting effects have a lot of programmable parameters, and brightness is one of them. So we can bring the brightness way down and make it look a lot more realistic. We could also use this to simulate things like a campfire. So we could actually put a gel over the front diffuser and use this same effect outside. Here we've recreated an outdoor scene with a campfire. One of the lights is placed offset to create some ambient light or possibly moonlight, and then the campfire light is placed on the ground and flagged pretty heavily to keep the ember glow really localized and really give it the effect of a campfire. So the ability to adjust some of the parameters of each one of the effects here is really key, and it's what makes the difference between this light and how it treats the effects and almost all the other ones stand out. The 800D has way better control over the effects. All right, so the next one is the television mode, and we're going to bring this back up in brightness. So we're going to change this all the way up to about 100%, and this is basically imitating what a television would look like on in the background. So you can see it's got kind of a random bright pattern that kind of dips in and out. So sort of like the candle mode, except this is using brighter light. In this example, one of the lights is placed up on a table set to the television effect, and the other light is placed offset to the right, creating a cool blue background. All right, the next one is the bad bulb. So this is like great for horror films and that kind of stuff. And we can change the color of it, which is great. So from here, we can bring the brightness down. So let's bring it down to about 50%. And then the color of the bulb itself can be altered, which is even cooler. So this can be like an old tungsten bulb, for example, that's kind of flickering in and out in the background. Or we can bring that up to like a daylight bulb. So if this was like fluorescent or something, we could make it bluer. The next effect on here is Party, and this is pretty self-explanatory. This is basically just cycling through all the RGB colors cycles, and you can change the timing of them and the brightness of them as well. So the timing change right here refers to how long it's going to stay on any one color before it switches to the next color. So at its lowest setting, which is 100 milliseconds, it's going to jump through the colors really quickly. As you up that amount, it's going to stay on those colors longer. But if we switch to the disco mode, it has many of the same controls, but the difference here is the timing. When we slow the timing way down, in this particular mode, what's happening is it's going to stay on the same color and it's going to strobe, and it's going to wait that much time before it goes to the next color and strobes. So that's a quick look at all the built-in special lighting effects on the 800D. And what really sets it apart more than anything else is all the control you get over those effects. It really makes them useful tools for filmmaking. All right, so this is an example of the lighting that you can get with the two light panels. I got one set up here with the key, and I have the other one set up as a soft fill. Both of these are about 45 degrees off the left and right of me. So this is a pretty good example of the kind of diffused light that you can get. Now, I'm just using the diffusion panels on the lights. I'm not using any additional, and the key light is at 50% and the fill light is at 1%. So these lights are plenty bright enough if you want to add some additional diffusion and push through them, or push through some screens or some shears. These do pretty well, and there's plenty of brightness to spare. So this is a good example of what you can expect from a two light setup directly in front of your talent. All right, we got our same lighting scene. We've got our key light right here, still at about 65%, but now we've moved the fill light back behind us, and we've also changed it to an RGB hue. So it's a kind of a cool blue, and we've taken the diffuser panel out of it. And the reason we did that is because we want to make the light a lot more harsh. We don't want it as soft. And this gives us kind of this blue contour light, which kind of helps separate us from the background. So this is a little bit more dramatic lighting setup, where you've got the key light is the only real white light source. These are 5600 Kelvin, so daylight. And then the one behind us is kind of a cooler blue, and that adds some dimension to the scene. All right, and in our last lighting setup here, we still have our fill light here, still balanced at daylight, and it's about 65%. And now we've changed our background light to be directly behind us. And we also have the diffusion panel still removed because we have the saturation set at 100%, and we've chosen kind of a nice cool background color, which gives us some really nice separation, and it makes for a nice dramatic shot. We could even put a whiteboard out on the other side of our fill light. That would help bounce some light maybe into the shadows here, but this makes for a nice dramatic shot, so it really has more to do with what you're going for. But as you can see, it really has more to do with the lighting mood you're trying to create, and without a doubt, having more than one light is always a better option than trying to do everything with just one light. All right, so that's the GVM 800D dual LED light panel kit. Tough deal to beat for its price point. This comes highly recommended. GVM is really trying hard to really make their brand, and they're doing it by making great quality products at a price point that's hard to beat and well packaged. That's really hard to find, especially on Amazon right now. So highly recommended. Definitely check it out. I'll leave it in the links below. If you learned anything or if this was helpful in any way, please remember to hit the subscription and notification bells, and we'll catch you in the next video.